Is this false spring about to fool you? Weather Update American Cities number 143. It is Sunday, February 15th, 2026, the 46th day of the year. And let's just say Mother Nature has decided to get a little bit weird on us. We are tracking a massive shift in the atmosphere that is targeting the West Coast with some serious intensity, but it is not just about the rain out there. We have got a rare severe weather threat lining up for California that could bring everything from flooding to high elevation snow. It is definitely time to pay attention because things are moving fast. First, let us talk about this fall spring everyone is feeling. It has been the talk of the town for a few days now, and honestly, if you are not currently stuck under a rain cloud or dealing with a tornado warning, it feels pretty incredible outside. While some folks in Georgia are literally under watch right now, others are stepping out into sunshine that feels more like April than mid-February. It is a bit of a trick though, and while the warmth is a nice break, there is a catch coming soon. This warm-up is only going to intensify as we head into the start of the work week. Can you believe Chicago might actually hit the 60s by Wednesday? That is not just warm. That is record-shattering territory for this time of year. Over in Amarillo, they are looking at temperatures in the low 80s. And even the Nebraska Panhandle could see the 60s or 70s. It is like a giant bubble of heat is rising up from the Gulf and spreading across the heart of the country, making winter feel like a memory. Down in the southeast, places like Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee are going to be feeling those gorgeous temperatures too. Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Texas are all in for a few days of spectacular weather. But here's your final warning. Do not get too comfortable in those short sleeves just yet. This is a classic false spring scenario, and I can promise you that the cold air is not done with us. Enjoy that sunshine while it lasts, but keep your heavy coats nearby for later. To put this warmth into perspective, we are actually looking at a winter heat wave for Tuesday and Wednesday. If we saw these kinds of temperature anomalies on a map during the middle of July, we would be talking about dangerous, life-threatening heat. Luckily, since it is February, it just translates to a beautiful day. Still, we are talking about 30 to 40 degrees above the seasonal average for Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. It is truly an extreme departure from the normal norms. This warmth is not just staying in the Central Plains. It is stretching its fingers all the way into South Dakota and Minnesota. Even the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and parts of the Northeast are going to feel a bump in the mercury. It might be a little less dramatic as you head toward the coast, but you will definitely notice the change. Meanwhile, looking at the maps, the extreme western U.S. is the only place staying below average. It creates a massive temperature divide across the map. Whenever you get this kind of intense warmth clashing with the natural winter cold, a battleground forms. Cold air from Canada wants to push south, while this warm bubble pushes back. The line where they meet is where the fireworks happen. We are expecting a pretty robust storm system to get its act together starting tonight and peaking through Wednesday. This clash is going to fire up some serious winds and potentially heavy snow for North Dakota and parts of Minnesota and Canada as well today. This could turn into a decent little snowmaker for folks up north, even reaching into the upper peninsula of Michigan. It is likely to start with a heavy burst of snow as the system initially collides with that colder air. However, on the southern side of things, it is a completely different story. We are looking at rain and maybe even some thunderstorms. In fact, there is a general thunderstorm risk for Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois because the atmosphere is just that energized right now. Okay, as we push further into the week, the focus for thunderstorms shifts toward the Ohio Valley by Wednesday and Thursday. Outside of the snow up north, these storms are going to be a major talking point. I do not anticipate a massive tornado outbreak, but I would bet money that we will be discussing active weather for Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Even Kentucky might see some action. It is unusual to see this much convective activity in February, but that is what this heat does to air. That stripe of snow we mentioned is not going to stop in the Midwest. It is projected to travel all the way into upstate New York and the southern parts of New England before it finally loses its steam. You can actually see the warm air burst hitting a literal wall of cold air near the Canadian border. Eventually, the warm air wins this specific round, and the whole system starts to fizzle out. But before it goes, it is going to leave a mark across a very wide stretch of the entire country now. If you are living in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, you really need to be on the lookout for a nasty wintry mix. This could be one of the more dangerous spots impact-wise, with the potential for about a quarter inch of ice accumulation. Along with that ice, we are looking at 3 to 6 inches of general snowfall, with some isolated spots perhaps hitting the 8-inch mark. This applies to northern North Dakota and northeast Minnesota too. It is going to be a messy and very slippery few days for all. Further east, the snow totals look a bit more manageable, but still worth noting. Boston might see around 2 inches by the time the system moves out. Interestingly, Ohio looks like it will miss out on the snow entirely. Instead of white flakes, they are more likely to see those thunder boomers I mentioned earlier. It is a wild contrast to have snow on one side of a state and lightning on the other, but that is the kind of dynamic weather pattern we are dealing with throughout this whole week. Now let us shift our gaze back to the west, where California is preparing for a setup that is both unusual and dangerous. This goes way beyond your standard rainy day. We have been tracking this for a while, and the threat of flash flooding and heavy mountain snow is very real. But there's also a rare severe weather component for the coast tomorrow. We are looking at the possibility of waterspouts forming over the ocean and moving onto the land as tornadoes, along with high wind gusts too. It would not surprise me one bit to see tornado warnings popping up around Los Angeles tomorrow. There is a swirling low-pressure system out there throwing bands of moisture and organized thunderstorms toward the coast. We might even see some mini supercells developing as they move into the LA basin tomorrow evening. Following that initial burst, the rain is just going to keep coming. It is essentially a 1-2 punch of moisture that will not give the ground much time to recover at all today. The first wave hits the northern part of the state before swinging south, followed by another blast of cold air and even more Pacific moisture. This is especially concerning for anyone living near burn scars, as the flooding risk will only escalate with each passing hour. A strong low-level jet is expected to crank up the wind shear, creating a sort of spin cycle effect. This rotation is why the Storm Prediction Center has issued a marginal risk for areas like San Diego and Los Angeles today. This includes Santa Barbara and even up into the Sacramento Valley along the Interstate 5 corridor. I think the intensity of these storms is going to catch a few people off guard. We have seen bigger atmospheric rivers in the last year, but the ability of this specific one to produce rotating storms and tornadoes makes it unique. My advice is simple. Do not be scared. Just be prepared. Make sure you have a plan in place so you know exactly what to do if a warning is actually issued for you. Beyond the rain and wind, the mountains are going to get absolutely hammered with snow. We are talking about totals ranging from 30 to 40 inches in the higher elevations. While most of this is happening way up where people do not live, it still impacts the passes. Some of those mountain peaks could see over 8 feet of fresh powder when all is said and done. If you are planning on traveling through the Sierra over the next few days, you might want to reconsider your timing and stay safe out there. Zooming out to look at the big picture, the current system on the East Coast should be clearing out tonight or early tomorrow morning. We might see a light dusting or maybe an inch of snow around New York City and Philly, but nothing major. The severe weather in Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida will also be long gone by the time most people see this. The main event remains the West Coast atmospheric river, which will drench Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, and many parts of Utah as well. By Wednesday, the primary focus shifts back to that stripe of snow moving from North Dakota into New England. I am also keeping a close eye on the potential for severe weather between Chicago and Detroit during the midweek transition. Looking even further out to the weekend of February 21st, there is another small system that could bring more snow. It is interesting because the long-range models are not showing anything massive or organized after that, which is quite rare for this time of year. Usually the GFS model gives us some eye candy to look at in the distant future, but right now it looks surprisingly calm. Maybe we are heading into a less active period after this week's chaos, though. I will not say the quiet word just yet. We are also only about 5 or 6 weeks away from the peak of severe weather season. Now is the perfect time to review your safety plans and make sure your family knows where to go when the sirens sound. Stay safe and stay very weather aware today, folks.